Welcome, everybody, to the Integrate Yourself podcast. We're your host, Allison Pillow and Maya Gottlieb. You can find me, Allison, at pureenergypdx.com, and you can find Maya at mayagottlieb.com. Today, we're here with a really great guest. We're really excited for Anna to be on our show today. Her name is Anna Rova. She's a writer, a podcaster, a yoga instructor, and she's also founder of Girl Skill, an online media platform, publication, and podcast empowering women to live a life of freedom, joy, and creativity. A former email marketer, she loves being on stage, sharing her knowledge on relationship dynamics, feminine, masculine energy, and the power that goes with that. Born and raised in Eastern Europe, she's on a mission to redefine female success and femininity. She believes in creating a thriving community of consciousness and awakened women through providing inspiration, tools, and resources that will help us build a better, more sustainable world, which is super important. She's also founded, Is It Man Inside Show, a podcast about men where she's interviewed John Gray, who's the best-selling author of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And together with her husband, Anna has traveled the world being on the road full-time, writing her personal blog, recording podcast episodes with incredible women for the Girl Skill podcast, practicing yoga and spreading love and positivity. She is passionate about yoga, personal growth, and spirituality, fashion design, and writing fiction. Welcome, Anna, to our show. Thanks so much for coming on.
What an introduction. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, it's very powerful. I feel like you've really dug into that balance between the feminine and masculine, which I think we're kind of trying to find that equilibrium, that equal point right now in the world with everything that's going on. But first, I just want you to share a little bit about yourself and your lifestyle, which is super interesting because you kind of live, from what I've read and heard about you, you live a little bit of the nomadic lifestyle, and which is super interesting. So love to hear more about that and about your journey too. And also, I saw that you worked for Mind Valley, which I follow them some, and I like a lot of the stuff they put out. So maybe you'd want to share a little bit about that as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm not a little bit nomadic. I'm actually nomadic
Totally
on
nomadic.
time. So I'm a location-dependent entrepreneur / digital nomad. So digital nomad is a popularized term for someone who basically doesn't have a stable home, just travels all over the place and works online. So I've been doing that for almost 3 years now. First working in online marketing, email marketing particularly, where I was an expert and a specialist. And then one day about a year ago, I woke up and I was like, all right, I'm done, because this is not my passion, not my thing. I can't do this anymore. Although it was bringing me good money, I was really good at it. And I wrote about being in this trap of, being paid well for what you do and being good at it, but that's actually not your genius zone, so to say. And so since then, I've launched my podcast and all of that. I'm going into coaching now and really going for my passion, which happens to be femininity, masculinity, and like the balance between the two, and especially, for women today. As you said before, it's such an important subject to tackle. And, sometimes I ask myself, like, why couldn't I just teach business or email marketing or whatever, because it's just, for me, it would be so much easier just to be in a space where there's not a lot of controversy. There's just, you just teach your thing, and it's still hard and everything, but you're not deeply involved in very sensitive issues. But, so it happened that I'm really passionate about it. And, of course, it's related to my personal journey. So going a bit back, I'm from a country called Moldova. As I told you before, it's between Eastern Europe and, between Romania and Ukraine. It's one of the poorest countries in Europe. And yeah, it's been such a journey. People don't hear. I'm usually the first person that people meet from the country. So I'm like an ambassador of my country, so to say. And I grew up having a really tough childhood. I have not history, but, my mother passed away when I was really young. I was 8. My sister was 12. And then I had a classical Cinderella story where my dad married an evil stepmother when I was 14. And since then, everything went downhill. And like, I had a terrible teenage kind of years period. Like it was a lot of anger, a lot of depression, a lot of suicidal thoughts, whatever. And then I broke out finally. So I won a competition to go to the US actually and be a high school exchange student. So I was always this girl that was a rebel. And, I started smoking cigarettes when I was really young, drinking alcohol, whatever, skipping school. But I was really smart, and school was like it came easily to me. And I was lucky because my parents gave me to like a really good English school when I was very little. So I knew English really well. So I won this competition at 17. I went to the US, I went to Virginia. I was a high school exchange student there, lived with a family in like in a small redneck town and all of that. And it was awesome. Like that year changed my life, like literally changed my life. And then I came back. More or less, I managed to finish high school. It was really hard. I left home because I couldn't stand my stepmother, my dad anymore, and all of that. And went to college after that. So I ended up in Bulgaria studying 4 years at an American liberal arts school. Therefore, you can see by my accent, it's like a weird combination of everything. But yeah, so I majored in 2 degrees, business and mass communication. And then I ended up on the way to Malaysia because I got a job at this amazing company called Mind Valley. And so I didn't know what it would be about, never heard of meditation. In fact, where I come from, meditation, personal growth, like people think you must be a monk or a crazy person to meditate. And so I went there and I ended up working with Mind Valley for 3.5 years, where I learned everything I know about online marketing, email marketing. As you know, they're like a huge publisher in the personal growth space.
Yep.
I ended up quickly rising to the, so to say, one of the top marketing positions. And I also got exposed to the personal growth world, where my transformation began. This is where I had my first podcast about men after breaking up with my boyfriend. And it was such a crazy journey. I had the time of my life. I started traveling and all of that. And I guess to connect that part with what I'm doing now is, I just realized one day, so I was kind of done in Malaysia and Kuala Lumpur in the company, because I've been there for a long time, like 3 years to be like, for a millennial, as you know, 3 years in a company, and it was a long time. And so, but I started getting to know this digital nomad movement, and I was like, wow, I can work online. I know a lot. And I knew that the American market and American companies would pay a lot of money for my knowledge, because I learned how to launch programs, webinars. I was managing like multi-million-dollar launches and stuff like that. And then, and so I said, all right, that's it. I'm just going to book a ticket, one-way ticket to Bangkok. I'm going to go to an island, and I'm going to, rent a studio by the beach, learn how to ride a scooter. And the rest is history. And I also met my husband on the road in Colombia 2 years ago.
Wow.
So, and we're now happily married and all, and traveling the world. So that's in a nutshell my story.
That's amazing. That's an amazing story. And gosh, it just sounds like you were able to just find what you wanted out of life pretty quickly in that span of time. So that's what led you to wanting to delve more into the feminine masculine aspect of spirituality, Anna?
So it's really interesting because it's one of those journeys that, there's so many stories, and I'm guessing Maya and Allison, you have the same thing, where you embarked on this journey of, nutrition and fitness and health because of a personal kind of reason,
Right.
Looking for answers and all of that. And I feel like so many online entrepreneurs, or in general entrepreneurs now, especially in the, education, personal growth niche, everything starts there. Like, I have a problem, there are no answers, I'm going to find my own answers, right? So when it started is that I broke up with my boyfriend. We were together for about 5 years. Everything was going great. We were supposed to have a wedding, whatever. And then something happened. And then, so we broke up. And it was an internal pull from me. And I was always, now looking back, and now I know because I've studied these subjects, is that I was always raised like a man, like a boy. And I feel like so many women will relate to it. Like, go, go, go. Don't trust anyone. Take care of yourself. And a lot of women in Eastern Europe are raised like that. And I'm sure it's not only Eastern Europe, but I also was raised without a mother and with an evil stepmother. And so
Yeah.
all of that added to it. And then now I realized, you know, I was literally raised like a man, where I only relied on myself. I knew that nobody's going to help me. You know, I need to push through. I need to get out of the country. Education is my ticket, make my own money, you know, just go for it. And that's what happened. And so by default, I attracted a man who was complementary to my energy, because I'm a bit of a, I'm a big fan of David Data. And someone who doesn't know David Data, he talks a lot about the polarity between the masculine and the feminine. And what happened and what happens today, actually, women who are in their masculine all day, taking charge and everything, they're by default attracting men who are more of a feminine essence. And most of us have both, you know, but most women resonate, and at the core they have a feminine essence. And so what happens, like, you can't have two husbands in the family or in a relationship, or two men in the relationship. So one of them eventually, like, one becomes a man, and it doesn't matter who's a woman, who's a man. And so I became the man of the relationship. I was making all of the decisions. I was making more money. I was just a guy, you know, and it was great. Like, I felt happy and understood whatever. Only when something happened and we broke up, and I was exposed to this dating world, and I think I was at the time 23, something like that. Obviously, like, I felt like I was 33, but whatever. And I knew what I wanted from life, you know. No, I was a bit confused about everything, but still. So I needed to date again, and I didn't know how to do that. It's like, you know, I was starting to talk to girlfriends and the guy friends, and like, how does this work? What's going on? And I realized, like, so many of us have no idea how relationships work. Men try to understand women, but women for men are still these like creatures that don't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they want, what's going on, I better run the other way, you know, all of that. But they still want them, they don't know how to deal with them.
Right.
And then women are like sitting there and thinking, oh my God, he just wants to get into my pants, like, what's happening, what, you know. There's so much misunderstanding between genders, especially like considering everything that's going on today. Today's even worse, I feel like, because that was like, what, 6 years ago, 5, whatever. And so, yeah, and I was listening to a lot of podcasts, and I said, all right, well, maybe I should start my own podcast, and I'm going to interview men, because of my masculine kind of personality, I had a lot of guy friends, and I was getting really well with guy friends. And in fact, I wasn't getting well with girlfriends at all. Now I realized I was looking down upon women in general, in terms of, like, you know, when I saw weakness, what I thought was weakness,
Right.
of the feminine, I judged it, and I was like, get your shit together and like go do this, you know, or something like that. So that was really interesting. And yeah, so I ended up interviewing a lot of men about women and relationships, and really got down to the core of, I mean, I don't have all the answers, right? But I ended up interviewing John Gray
Yeah.
of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And it was just such an amazing journey. And it was a journey into myself, of understanding who I am as a woman, who are men, what men want, what is important to men, what's going on in their kind of psyche when they are trying to, you know, to date or even pick up women, whatever. I remember it was a moment when guys started telling me, well, you know, when I was in my puberty, whatever, I started Googling how to pick up women. I got into these like circles of, you know, how to do, you know, all of these circles that men go in. I was like, it was mind blowing. I was like, what? What do you mean you Google how to pick up? What
Gotta
do
be
you
really
mean?
hard for guys, I think, in some respects, you know? I mean,
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what, like, I didn't know this. I was like,
yeah.
what? Like, you study this? And I was just exposed to a whole world of what men have to deal with. And, you know, I'm not saying, oh, poor guys, whatever, but there's a journey there. Like, there's no proper role models for guys. Like this is such a big issue that a lot of women, including me, just didn't know, you know?
Yeah.
So
I didn't think about it until I had teenage sons. Now I have teenage sons and they're trying to relate, figure the whole thing out. I'm like, I'm sorry, honey. I don't know. I will help you out the best I can, but it's really hard. And now I see it through their eyes and I'm like, wow, like, yeah, that's got it. That's a lot of weight on their shoulders to have to, it takes a lot of courage on their part as well.
absolutely.
Now
Hmm.
it's kind of the playing field's equaling out a little bit more. And I think the girls, like, because when I was younger, I feel like, I mean, I did ask out guys and stuff, but it wasn't as acceptable to do that, as much. So, but now it's much more acceptable.
Yeah,
Not
for
as weird.
sure, for sure. And so this is how my journey started. I was just so fascinated. I'm still fascinated by the feminine masculine dance, because it really is a dance. The whole
Yeah.
term peacocking or whatever, it comes from nature. Like,
Yeah.
it's incredible to watch. And the more I got into this subject, and now of course I have a podcast interviewing women about
Right.
femininity. And so the coin kind of flipped. Men Inside Show is more of a personal journey, and I've healed a lot of my traumas and issues with my dad. Like, I understood that the key to loving myself more and healing my relationship with men is my relationship with dad, because there's
Yes.
so much there that just wasn't talked about or whatever. Like, our relationship was non-existent. And so we flew him to Asia. We spent 3 weeks with my dad traveling Asia. It's hard in the beginning, but in the end it was just transformational. So that whole journey led me to meeting my now husband, and also starting Girl Skill, where now I'm really passionate about female success and redefining and what does it mean to be a woman today, a woman who wants to be feminine, in the sense that, like, I'm a girl and I understand that I don't need to be a man anymore.
Right.
And I can trust the universe and I can trust men, and we can all dance in this feminine masculine dance. And that's the world I believe in. I believe in men. I believe in great men. There are great men around, and I feel sad that what's happening today is not acknowledging that there are great men out there. And I feel like women just need to regain trust in men, because
Yeah.
there's so many great men out there. I mean, it's probably they're less than the others, whatever, but I just want to focus on them, and I want to help women and myself as well regain trust in the
Yeah.
world and men, and have a balanced future. So yeah, that's where it started. That's what I'm doing today.
That's so awesome. I think that's important. And I'm going to I can tell Maya wants to ask you something. So I'm going to just say this real quick. And my experience with the masculine is also like you said, making peace with that. Then you can actually have a more healthy feminine, and I think it's going to take really women understanding themselves better to so that we can come together with men. And I think it's exciting. These are exciting times right now. And in my lifetime, I've never seen anything like this. And there's also some craziness going on at the same time. So it's incredible what's going on all the dynamics, just watching this show before our eyes right now. So yeah.
Right.
Wow. Go ahead.
So my question would be, what are you finding is the most helpful advice to women that have been in your place, where they've been the heavy masculine person to get through that feeling of survival? And what do you think is kind of coming down the pike for the new generations of balancing?
Great, good questions. My goodness. Okay. Let me think about this. So for women, okay, so there are two questions, right? The first one is for women who are, so here's what I did. And in my work with women, because I start to kind of coach women and do these programs, whatever. What I did is, first of all, I mean, it's all, the answer is in self-love. But of course, self-love is a term that's like spread around or kicked around so much, nobody knows what the hell it means anymore, right? I think the main thing that we need to do first is to explore and redefine and actually rediscover our own femininity and start embracing it rather than resisting it. Because a lot, And it's really interesting because we live in a culture and a society where obviously masculine qualities are appreciated and rewarded. And to me, that makes sense. I'm not, the thing is that, all the progress in the world, like if you want to build, like anything that's doing and results oriented and goal oriented is a masculine quality. Like you need to get shit done, you go and do it. It's a lot of masculine qualities. And obviously women today, like we have so much opportunity today, and I tend to flip the coin and say, instead of I'm not being paid enough or I don't have enough opportunity, I flip the coin and I see a lot of opportunity today compared to 50 years ago. You know what I mean? Like to me, it's just as a woman today, I can do whatever the hell I want, and I choose to focus on, I don't have enough opportunity, I'm not getting paid well, into, all right, where is the opportunity? I mean, look at me. I started traveling the world by myself. I never had, it was actually really interesting to mention that because I grew up in Eastern Europe, I never had in my mind a thought or an idea that I can't do anything because I'm a woman. Like, and because I grew up in post-Soviet republic where everybody was equal. In fact, it was beneficial for the progress, for the economy, for everything, to put women in labor, in the workforce. And so we grew up as like, I never felt discriminated. I never felt less because I'm a girl. In fact, I was competing with men on the same level. So that never was a problem to me. And so because of what happens, women are shut down to their feminine side, which means, the nurturing side, the letting go side, the relaxing side, the flow in us, which is so powerful. So basically, when you look at individuals and as a society as a whole, I'd say 80% of all of us are men, and only 20% of like awakened women, conscious women. I don't necessarily like using the term divine feminine because that's more into the spiritual, whatever, but the powerful woman is a woman who understands her powers and leverages them, because as women we can do anything we want, we can get anything we want, but we don't necessarily have to use the same tools, the same behaviors to get to where we want. And so I'm exploring all of that. So what I'm saying is, like, the first step is to really explore that side of yourself. If you're listening and you're like, what's going on? I'm with a guy who doesn't make sense, whatever. It's really embracing, and there's a lot of tools out there, like my podcast or whatever podcast, a lot of books that really teach that, because it's a skill that nobody taught us how to do. We're so disconnected from our creativity, from feeling into our body, from just the flow of energy, just the fact that we can create life. And, I'm not a mother, and Maya and Ellison, you are, I'm not sure. Maya, are you a mother? No.
She's
okay.
a mama of
Only
dogs.
furry dogs.
Oh, there you go.
Animal
there you
world.
yeah. But I'm sure you can connect to what I'm saying in terms of, it's not the same. Like, I just see so many differences, and embracing these differences. And then, so first thing is embracing it, understanding, and really starting exploring it. And also I see in a lot of women, they should, like, we need to prove something to someone. We need to compete all the time with ourselves, with men, with whatever, prove it to our dad, prove it to everyone. Where I came to the point, I'm like, no, I'm done with that, and my career, my business, my whatever doesn't define who I am as a woman. And so that's the first thing. And the second thing, of course, is understanding men. And it's really hard right now, like with everything that's going on, to regain trust, especially if we've been victimized, assaulted. There's a lot of stuff going on there. But, like, I'm all for take responsibility, heal yourself, and move forward, because that's what I did. And this is where my life transformed. I don't blame anyone. I just, and everything transformed. The men around me today are amazing men. No matter what I meet, I just attract this kind of energy that men are very helpful, and I let them help. I let them lead, quote unquote, lead in a way that they just need to feel needed. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I do. Yeah, totally. They
that's
don't,
their whole
have a purpose if they don't feel that way.
Exactly. And so you see all these men, they're like, what the hell am I supposed to do today?
I think that's what's happening right now on a mass scale in some ways. I mean, with some people, not everybody, but, men are starting maybe to question that, what why am I here, you know?
Exactly. And so when I get on podcasts, when I write, I tell men, and I know that you have male listeners as well. I tell men, we need you. We believe in you. I want you to open doors for us. I want you. I
Right.
want you to
I'm
take
welcome.
care
Yeah,
of
I
us. You
welcome
know.
that. Like, please, thank you. I'll give you
Yeah,
help
exactly.
anytime.
Please, thank you. And you know, there are women who resist it. I'm like, no, thanks. I can do everything by myself. Well,
Yeah.
if you can do everything by myself, why the hell do you need a man in your life? And then they
Right.
complain about not having a good relationship.
Well, and
You
if
know?
you think about that too, it really, I used to be like that more when I was younger, I have to say, you know, about I can do it all myself. I'm an independent woman. And I think that is a mistake because now what I've learned is it's more about, you know, receiving and allowing. If you really want to tap into the feminine, you kind of have to be able to receive, you know, and that's a practice of that. So when someone wants to give
Absolutely.
you something, then take it, you know, receive it. And that'll be a good practice in learning about your own femininity and allowing things to come to you. You know, that's the whole thing about abundance, right? I mean, you know, that's a
For
feminine
sure.
quality. So yeah,
Mm.
that's what I started doing in it, and also not
Receiving is a big
explaining everything
part.
away. What's that?
Yeah. Receiving is a big part of it, you know, and I had a big problem with it, and I still am working on it,
Oh
you know,
yeah,
because
we
we're
all
so.
are. Hey everybody. Thrive Market has been my most favorite online store for about 2 years now. And I'll tell you guys why. It's because they sell the best and the highest quality organic and health products at wholesale prices. So you get about 25 to 50% off and they ship it straight to your door. So it's super easy and you can get all the products that we actually recommend on this show, as well as many products that you'd probably find at something like Whole Foods, and it'd probably be marked up about 50%, which gets expensive every week. So that's one of the reasons I really love Thrive Market. So how do they do that? Thrive Market cuts out the middleman and works directly with the brands, and then they pass all the savings on to their members. Members get everyday wholesale pricing at 25 to 50% off the best healthy and organic premium products for just $60 a year. So if you put that into perspective, you can make your membership back in savings within the first 2 orders, which is kind of amazing. And even better, for every paid membership, Thrive Market donates a membership to a low-income family, veteran, or teacher. So together, we're all making a healthy living affordable for everyone, and we're helping the community. And that's one of the things I really also love about Thrive Market. And that's a company I am so honored to support. And if you support Thrive Market that way, you can also support our podcast. And by just joining, even for the trial membership or ordering a product off Thrive Market, you send a little bit of money back to us. And that supports our production cost and all the time that we put into this podcast for you guys. So thank you guys so much. If you want to join or do a trial for Thrive Market, go ahead and follow the link, click on the link, and then it'll take you to pureenergypdx.com, and you can find the Thrive Market banner, click there, and then it'll take you straight over there through our affiliate link. We appreciate it so much. Thank you. And now back to the show. We rarely get to talk about you know, these kind of things. We have had a show a while back about it, but about women's empowerment. And then I think I would like to actually maybe let's progress on to like victimhood, you know, because that's one big thing that we also have talked about in the past, and learned helplessness, which is what we found is it's linked to physiology too, and lack of energy. People, you know, especially for women who aren't really giving themselves the right nutrition or enough food in general, can fall into this learned helplessness thing, even just from having a lack of energy, but also getting into this victimhood loop. So I don't know if you can speak to that, Anna, or if you want to give me your experience on that.
Well, I just want to say that I'm not an expert in, you know, I don't work with healing trauma, victimhood, sexual, you know, like there's a lot of sexual trauma, all of that. But having said that, I've interviewed women on my podcast, and we talked about, you know, I talked to experts in healing sexual trauma, healing your heart, healing a lot of different things. And so I'm not saying this as an expert. I'm saying this from my own experience. And To be honest with you, I wasn't victimhood mentality a lot growing up and up to my 20s. I had my own, sexual, so to say, incidents, and I just think that it's unavoidable. And the biggest challenge for me is talking about these subjects without sounding like whatever it's happened to you doesn't matter, or whatever is happened to you, just get your thing together and like move on. And sometimes it sounds like that, but it's not really that, because honestly, I haven't gone through a deep sexual trauma, and I know women have. And so obviously I can't be there sitting like, this is how you do it. There are women who went through it, healed themselves, and teach other women how to do it. But in general, it's a really hard experience. But I've just talked to, her name is Melanie Oliver, and she's been through a lot, and she's really helping women get over it. And I ask her these questions, because a lot of women are asking themselves, why me? Why me? And this question itself is already a victim question. Why me? Because you're just sitting there, why me? And so I honestly, no matter what happens, and I believe in the law of attraction, and risking sounding like you attracted this into your life, by no means I want to say that,
right?
But I know that the victim attracts its predator, and there's a reason why some women attract this into their lives and others don't. And again, why me question, that's not a relevant question. There are many, many different reasons. And I've asked myself the question, why me, when my mother passed away. It's a lot of different things. It can be sexual, not really. But understanding that going through it and taking proactive action of healing it and taking responsibility for your own life, no matter what happens. I mean, there are women there who've gone through so much, you know what I mean? Rape and assault and kidnapping and whatever. And they've regained their power, and they've learned from it, and they emerged as these amazing women who teach others healing and understanding. And in fact, they're much more powerful because they've gone through it and understood it and healed themselves. So I can't talk about it much, as I said, because I'm not an expert in this. And obviously, I can't understand sexual trauma that much because I haven't gone through it. But still, I feel like every woman's responsibility, no matter, because if you look at my life, I mean, I had a terrible childhood, but I'm not sitting there and saying, oh, my past defines me or whatever. It's really, how can you get up and heal yourself and move forward and create a life that you love and that you're proud of, and spread the light, pretty much.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation, I don't know if you know about it, in the US about the gymnastics coach that was just sentenced. And he is basically, the conversation that keeps coming up is that, the silence that women take to first not talk about it, and then how long it takes for them to actually say something about it. And so there's a little bit of that I'd like to discuss a little bit with you, is about what would you think would be needed to grow within that person for either the feminine or the masculine side? Because something is either surviving is to say, I'm masculine, I'm going to keep myself together and not tell anyone. And then the feminine side would kind of come into that side of something happened to me, I'm not really sure what. And so there's that nurturing of self, but also this, if I let the story out and talk about it, I might be letting my masculinity down. So there's a little bit of that balance that needs to be played with.
So can you give me a bit of a context? What happened? What is the situation that we're talking about with the gymnast teacher, or what was it?
The doctor, right? So this is what I heard. This is a doctor for the U.S. Women's Olympic Gymnastics team. And so I don't know if you know of Bella Caroli. He coached Nadia Comaneci.
Scrolling Facebook or news about a year ago. So
did you?
I have no idea what's happening in the world unless a friend tells me.
I hear this from other people mostly because I was a gymnast, and they think that, talk to me about it because of gym.
So Nadia Comaneci was the top champion that won a 4-0
in the 70s. Yeah. So anyway, since then he's been one of the top coaches. He came to the U.S. and he and his wife have been top coaches in the US for the women's Olympic or the US gymnastics team. And so they have a camp and all this stuff. And so apparently the doctor that they hired has been molesting all of the gymnasts for like 20 years, I think, or something. And the story's just now coming out. And so what I just heard today actually is that he says he was giving them pelvic floor exams, but the girls said that it didn't feel that way. It felt more sensual or sexual. So that's what Maya is referring to is
yeah. So it's really interesting because what's gonna start happening today, and this is just the beginning. So what's gonna happen today, right now, in the future, starting today, is like all of these industries where men have harassed, insulted, behaved inappropriately, all of it is gonna come out in all industries, right? Because if Hollywood did that, and that's amazing what's happening, right? Because if it's happening in Hollywood and all these actresses are, moving forward with this and not being silent, it's going to happen everywhere because,
it's in the politics also. I mean, you got to remember Bill Clinton.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah. So it's really interesting. Like, this is such a complicated subject to talk about, and and by default, because I'm in this niche, people are going to ask me questions, and I'm going to, I have my own thoughts around it. But, for me, how to say this in a way that's not going to offend a lot of women or whatever, I tend to focus on things like, the reality is that men have taken advantage of the female body and of their power for a very long time. Men have not grown up and, as boys, as teenagers, whatever, in a lot of men today have built their careers, have built their wealth, whatever, not having proper figures like male role models, not having fathers, not having a lot of resources and education to understand what are my values as a man, what is going on today. So they're abusing their power. There's a lot of ego play and all of that. So I'm not saying that to defend them or to say that is the correct way to behave. That's not true. But what I'm saying is that as a culture and as, between the game between men and women, I think it's on both sides, to be honest with you. So I can't sit here and just blame the men and say, you're a bunch of pigs, you don't know how to behave with women, blah, blah. I accept responsibility as a woman myself, and I feel like the blame, and I don't want to blame anyone, it is what it is. This too shall pass. We are where we're at. I've tattooed this on my right hand from my yoga training, right? Like, this is happening. Let's acknowledge it. It is not right. It's not okay. What can we do together? So and I see, I get really sad when women get together and say, the last thing we need to talk to is the white man to be in this room and discuss these subjects. I feel like white men absolutely need to be present in these discussions, and the guys who are like, that's not correct. The fathers, and especially the fathers who have sons, they understand the danger of it, to come into the table and say, all right, how do we fix this? And because, it's not a one day or like it's like epidemic, so to say, right? Like, I'm not sure if it's my generation, this 100 years is going to be fixed. Like, some men just they have two brains, so to say, and a lot of them are just following one of them. And it's like the primal brain. There's so many unconscious men out there who don't understand this or whatever. And so I feel like it's on both of us as women. I've gone through a bunch of programs, and I've realized that as women, we define a lot of the times in dating and relationships what is okay, what is acceptable. And if that's not acceptable for you, you got to say that, and then you got to kind of stand in your boundaries. What are your boundaries? If you're not feeling okay with it, then you consequences need to follow. And so it's education on both sides. On the female side, how do we educate, our sons, our daughters? How do we talk about this in groups? But I still feel like this can be done in a positive outlook instead of having a lot of anger, guilt, like, all right, this is happening. It is what it is. What can we do moving forward to educate ourselves and not to blame each other and create a lot of hate and anger? So that would be my answer to that.
That's a great answer. And I think to elaborate, give you a little bit of my take on that too, is I think that what's really important, what I've found to be important is, especially for women, to really discover their own values so that they can set proper boundaries. Because otherwise, if you're not clear on that, then you can't set boundaries with the men. And if you're not setting boundaries, then they're, they're confused. So,
because they're
that's
picking
when
out.
things get messed up. Yeah.
Yeah, that so true. I'm just saying, like, men always, when you go on a date, well, as a guy, because I've talked to a lot of guys, right? So they go on a date and they're testing your boundaries as a woman. What's allowed here? What's not allowed here? And women are different, if for you, for example, what's not allowed is, some women don't kiss until I don't know what date. Some women sleep on have sex on the first night or whatever.
Right.
And I'm not saying one of them is wrong or right, but women are testing men are testing boundaries. And so it's important for you to, first of all, understand what are your boundaries. Like, ask yourself and have like a code, or write it down. What kind of a guy you want? What behavior is acceptable? What is not acceptable? And a lot of women actually, they tolerate a lot of the shit that's going on. Sorry, am I allowed to say these words here? I don't know. Yeah. I get really passionate. I'm like, yeah. So we tolerate a lot of the shit that men do, and that's not the right way.
Right.
It's about bringing it forward and saying, what are you doing? Because the divine feminine, or the powerful, Kali, the goddess, she's going to chop his head off. And he knows it. And that's why a lot of men are like, I don't want to deal with that. But the conscious man, and this is what David Data talks about, and I love this subject, he's going to stand there and he's going to hold the space. A woman brings a lot of shit in a man in terms of, this is what's going on. You got to wake up, if it's an equal partnership in terms of energy, you as a woman, it's your duty and responsibility to say what's happened. That's not okay. Because a lot of men, they're in their head or in the other head a lot of times. And so they're not, it's almost autopilot for them, that this primal instinct of going forward, doing this, and they're not like us. We play a huge role in this as mothers, as wives, as girlfriends, whatever. So taking responsibility and really saying, that was not okay. Next time, this is the boundary. So I feel like that's really important.
Sounds like a lot of education, like a lot of returning back to defining self, is to kind of know self. But you have so many values that you've picked up from your family when you grow up. You accepted things in your society, who was influencing you at that time, the authority figures that you were growing up with. So a lot of times we kind of snuffed out ourselves just to fit in. And so that part of us has to reunite that fire that says, hey, you said yes back then, but you really didn't want to say yes. Now it's about honoring that no that wanted to come, or vice versa. So it's really powerful to have teachers like you and people who are really passionate about it to help women and men redefine their boundaries.
Yeah, I work with a lot of women, and and I talk to a lot of women. It's really interesting what's happening is that there's a moment, I don't know, maybe it's like the 30-year crisis or whatever crisis. Some women get to this in their 40s or 50s or 20s. It just depends. And a lot of us are waking up, it's like, oh my God, who am I? What are my values? What's going on? So, and I had that myself, I was like, oh my God. A lot, and for me it happened through travel. So it can happen in a lot. And I love one of the book that I recommend, and my whole Girl Skill brand is based on this book. It's called Women Who Run with the Wolves.
I love that book.
Where it's incredible. It's like the Bible into womanhood and femininity. But it is true. It's like we have gone through life with certain beliefs, and obviously our parents, right? Our parents, and that's what I teach women, and that's when I work with women. We look at what is the foundation of you understanding and believing what is true about relationships in general, because we model our mothers and fathers when it comes to how does a relationship work, And for me, I grew up in a culture where cheating and in some cases, violence in a family was kind of okay. If a man is cheating on his wife, that's kind of that's the norm. You know, what can you do about it? Men are, you know, pigs or whatever, you know, or like some sort of violence is going on. So I grew up seeing these relationships, you know, my girlfriends, like I remember I was a teenager, some of my girlfriends were saying like divorce was happening all over the place. It's still happening, as you know, men were cheating on their wives. And I'm like, well, I guess it is what it is, you know? And so only later when I started being conscious, when I started discovering and understanding, when I started looking at men who have values in their life, where cheating is not okay, like, no, you know, who care about their families, who care about their women, who have fathers, role models that are proper role models. I'm like, wait a second, everything I knew about this is pretty much not right, or how it should be. And so, yeah, we go through life with all these different things, how things should be. And the fact that I travel so much, I see a lot of different relationship models and I talk to different people. And for me, this was the awakening, when it's like, who am I without my job, without my beliefs, without my hair, you know, like without my makeup, whatever, like whatever the story we built around who am I as a girl, as a woman, just gets stripped away. And then I love doing the work of redefining that. Like, who are you as a woman? What are your boundaries? What do you like doing? Like, yeah, you've been in the industry working as an accountant, whatever, for 10, 15 years, but like, is this really what is is this really what you wanted to do as a little girl? And for me, it wasn't, for example. And so I love this type of work. And what you said, it's really interesting how we're programmed, or like, there's a lot of patterns in there that we pick up, limiting beliefs and all of that. And so I know that now I'm planning to become a mother soon. I don't know when that's going to happen, but I'm conscious about, oh my God, like I don't want to put too much pressure on myself, you know, because like I can be like getting paranoid, but I'm like, what am I going to teach to my kids? How is the relationship? What are they going to learn from me and my husband when we are talking to each other? What is the model that they're going to learn? So this is so important.
Yes,
absolutely. You're already pretty a few steps ahead there, Anna, with that, I think. Way further ahead than I was.
Just a bit, you know, just a bit.
Yeah. Starts with that desire, though. So that's really great. Yeah, I think it's really powerful when we're able to know ourselves better as women, and that book that you mentioned, Women Who Run with Wolves, that's a really great kind of I guess it uses in a way it's a Carl Jung kind of like approach, but it uses more mythological kind of approach is how I felt when I read it. And it really brings you back to like the stories of women, you know, like really what we live, you know, and we do forget who we are a lot of times, like, because you know, I know personally I became a people pleaser very early on. So I just took on that and started eventually stopped knowing who I was anymore, really what I wanted. So I had to kind of get back to that and relearn that. And that led me to this podcast. But yeah, that's a journey there. And sometimes it happens in midlife, sometimes it happens in your 20s, but for everyone's different.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest journey.
Yeah.
What I found I liked about the book was a reminder of the transitions in life, from the maiden to the matriarch to the elder. And as history has shown, our culture has progressed so more away from those rituals of honoring self and what the human experience is about. And the book kind of brings you back to the knowing of like, these transitions start to come at you and you don't like really know all the essence of it unless you've been around like others that have kind of can guide you and tell you. So community wise, especially, if you have your fellow women or men that you are with, you get a blend, you know, instead of just being alone and going, oh great, this is happening.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody else has been through it. Nice. Yeah. That's great to know.
Yeah, there's a chapter in there about finding your tribe, and I think it's called the gazelle or the duckling. I can't remember, but I love was it, zygote? I think she mentions the animal zygote, and how a lot of us are just not in our tribes. Like, we're born into societies or families that are like, you know, I always felt like I don't belong here. I always felt like an ugly duckling, like I'm not supposed to, why am I here? And so that quest for finding your own tribe and finding where you belong is a really important quest for a woman, especially because, you know, for us, community and relationships are pretty much the most important thing that we want. And so being surrounded by that and being supported, especially by a community of women, is so important. And for me, it's been such a transformation when I've basically redefined what I think about myself and other women. And now I'm like really, and you know, the sisterhood, especially in podcasting, it's really interesting how women are just keen to help. You know, we have such a strong connection because we can empathize a lot more, and we're like, yeah, sure, I'll jump on your podcast, I'll share my success, like, let's do this. Anna, what about this? While in male dynamics, it's not really like, there's a lot more competition there, while we're focused on, as a community, how can we come together and help each other, and you know, there, like, it's fierce there, you know.
I didn't know that, actually. I have yeah.
Well, that's why it's really hard for us to compete with. It's not hard in terms of ability, intellectual ability, physical, yes, of course there's differences, but intellectually it's not hard. Like, women can do anything that men can do in terms of intellectual ability, but energetically we deal a lot. It's more difficult for us to deal with a lot of stress that men go through. They have some kind of an ability to withhold stress. Like, for them, no problem. You know, my husband wakes up at 4:30 a.m. He just goes for it. You know,
it's called testosterone, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like a locomotive. You know, there's a goal. You just go for it. You don't stop. You just go. I would never be able to do that. You know, he goes to CrossFit. He comes back home and he's like sweating, dripping, tired. He's like, oh my God, I almost threw up. It's awesome. I'm like looking at it, I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's so funny. That's one of the things we'd like to talk about on our show, is the difference with the hormonal difference. But that's a good point. I mean, it is that is interesting.
Just remember when he turns 40. Then
all things will change.
He's already 40.
Oh, so he's already gone.
Maybe 50. I don't know. 50? Men are later with that, aren't they, than women?
So you can find me. Well, obviously, you know, I have the Girl Skill podcast, and
we'll put all your links on the podcast notes as well. Just
right. So if you go to iTunes or whatever, you know, if you're listening to this, so you were listening to podcasts, whatever is your app or whatever, find Girl Skill, and Anna Rova or Girl Skill. You can find my podcast, subscribe to the podcast. And if you're a woman and, you know, this is interesting to you, you resonate, just tune into some conversations I'm having with, and not only my podcast, there's so many great women talking about this subject, you know. And so go there, and the website is, girlskill.com. Everything is there. I'm not sure when this episode is going to air out. I have a really interesting beta experimental program coming up. So I'm doing my first ever group kind of live program. It's going to be a 6-week program where I'm going to teach women, you know, it's going to be a close circle of 10 women. I'm going to teach them everything I know about femininity, you know, rediscovering. So it's called Rediscovering Your Own Success. Because a lot of women are a bit confused about what does it mean, you know, success as a woman. So it's a 6-week program, where I teach them everything I know, and especially men. Like, there's going to be 2 weeks about men. So if you're interested, you know, you can go to the website, and I don't know, I'll probably put up a work with me or something like that.
Do you have a newsletter, Anna, that people can sign up on?
Yeah. So if you go to the website, obviously you can sign up to get new episodes, and what else is in there? Yeah, just new episodes, and subscribe. I'm putting together, actually, by the time this probably airs, it's going to be out. In all of my episodes, I have a tools and resources section, and I'm going to ask you, Allison and Maya, as well. So what are your favorite tools and resources that keep you productive and fulfilled? So I'm releasing a business and career edition for women who are really looking for amazing resources and books and apps. So that's going to be on the website as well. Yeah, but you can find me there. And then from there, you can find me personally, you know, on Instagram. I write, whatever. So
you have a great Instagram account, by the way. If you guys need to check out Anna's Instagram account. It's beautiful. And it's
thank
Girl
you.
Skill. It's Girl Skill.
Well, I go by
Sorry.
I go by, my personal one is Wanderova. So it's
Okay.
Wanderova. And then there's the Girl Skill Official. That Instagram is more of a magazine where I read episode covers and like quotes, and also wolves and women.
I love it.
That's
I love all the
thing.
artwork.
Yeah. So check that out for sure.
And also definitely check out her podcast. I love your podcast. I subscribe to it, and it's you have some really great conversations. I love your voice on the podcast. It's really very pleasant and to hear, and which is, you can't say that for all podcasts, right? So but it's nice to have.
Thank you.
So but thank you for the work that you do and all this wonderful stuff that you're sharing with people and helping people with. We really, really appreciate you, and we appreciate you coming on our show. Thanks, Anna.
Thanks so much. Thank you for having me. It was amazing. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody.